Welcome to our video on Unit 7, Lesson 6. Today we are going to be working on comparing fractions with unlike denominators. This is going to be combining all the things that we've been working with on fractions. So we have been working on finding equivalent fractions and comparing fractions that either have the same numerator or the same denominator. So today we're going to have things that are not the same, and we have to figure out how we can make them the same. So we are going to be making equivalent fractions. That way we can compare them. So in order to create them, there are two things that we can do. So the first thing we can do is to find the LCM, or the lowest common multiple, or we're going to find the product of the two whole numbers. Alright, so let's take a look at our two numbers right here. So we have 3/5 and 5/10, and we're being asked to compare these. Well, if I'm looking at them, they do not have the same numerator and they do not have the same denominator. So what we need to do is we are going to start by looking at our denominator. So we're going to be looking at our 5 and our 10. Alright, so as we look at our 5 and our 10, we need to think, how can we make these the same? So we need to make these equivalent fractions. Well, as I told you, we can find the lowest common multiple. So I'm going to take the number 5 and the number 10, and I'm going to find the multiples. So here are the multiples for 5 is 5, 10, 15, 20. The multiples for 10 are 10, 20, 30. Alright, but I can stop because I have some that are in common. Alright, so if you remember, the least common multiple is the one where it's the lowest one that they have in common. So the smallest one that they have in common is going to be 10. So what I need to do now is I need to take these fractions and make sure they both have 10 on the denominator. Well, this fraction already has 10 on the denominator, so I don't need to do anything with it. However, 3/5 does not, so we're actually going to be taking a look at 3/5. So let's take our 3/5 and we're going to write it over here. And we need to make it so it has 10 on the denominator. So we're going to come back over here and we can figure out, what do we do to get from 5 to 10? Well, we were saying 5 times what equals 10? So 5, we did 5 times 1, 2. So 5 times 2 is going to equal 10. So remember, whatever I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. So I'm going to be saying 3 times 2 is going to be equaling this number right here. So this is going to be 6. So right now, this is the same as saying 3/5 is equal to 6/10. So we multiplied by 2 to get there, right? So this number is what we're going to be changing. We're going to actually change this number with 6/10. So now we have 6/10 and 5/10. Remember, we got the 6/10 from replacing it with a 3/5. That was our equivalent fraction. So now I'm going to come over here and put our sign in there with what we're doing. So now we are going to look at our numerator. So when I look at my numerators and saying, 6 is bigger than 5. This is what we have been working on, right? When we said that the denominators are the same, we're going to look at the numerator. So 6/10 has one more piece than 5/10, and they're all the same size. So therefore, this is going to read as 6/10 is greater than 5/10. Alright, so here are our two new numbers, 5/8 and 3/5. And now we need to compare these two numbers to figure out which one is bigger and which one is smaller. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to find the lowest common multiple, or the LCM, of our denominator. So we are looking once again at our denominators. We need to figure out how we can make these equivalent fractions, which means they have to have the same denominator in order to compare these. So for 8, we're going to say it's 8, 16, 24, 32, my cursor's 32, and then we're going to say 40. Alright, so then 5 is going to be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. So it took us a little minute to get there, but our lowest common multiple is going to be 40. So I'm going to have to this time change both of our fractions. So I need to figure out 5/8 equals what fraction to get 2 over 40. All right, so I'm going to figure out 8 times what is going to equal 40. Well, I could always come over here and skip count. So it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times we went over. So we're going to be saying that 8 times 5 is going to be 40. So now I need to do the same thing to the top. Whatever I do to the bottom, I must be doing to the top in order to make it equivalent. So I'm saying 5 times 5, because I did 5 times 5 there. So 5 times 5 is going to be 25. So now I know that 5/8 is equal to 25/40. So this is going to be replacing this number. So, but we need to change 3/5 as well. So I'm going to say 3/5 is equal to what over 40? So, just like we did on this one over here, we need to say what did we do to 3/5 in order to get to 40? So 5 times what is going to be equaling 40? So 5 times what equals 40? So I can skip count again, or you may just know. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 5 times 8 is going to equal 40. So whatever I did to the top, or to the bottom, I must do to the top. So I know I need to multiply that by 8. So 3 times 8 is going to be 24. So this is our new fraction. And this is going to be replacing this. So if I rewrote this so I could see my numbers, this one would be 25/40 and 24/40. It's very important to make sure you put them in the same exact place, because if you put them in the wrong order, so say put this one over here, I'm going to get the answer wrong because I have to put it how they have it. So I'm comparing my top by saying 25 is bigger than 24. So I'm going to be reading it like 25 is greater than 24. So 25/40 is bigger than 24 and 40 over 40. All right, here's where we're going to use our second method. So now for both of them, we found the lowest common multiple, but let's say I don't really want to spend that much time doing all that and finding all the lowest common multiples. Well, the easiest thing to do is to take my two denominators and multiply them by each other. So I'm just going to say 8 times 5. So 8 times 5 is going to equal 40, which is the same thing as what we were just doing earlier. So we were saying that the lowest common multiple is 40. It's not always going to work out like that, but this time it did. So then after I multiply these two, I am then going to be making it the same way we were doing before. So they both need to equal 40 on the bottom. So I'm going to be saying, I know 8 times 5, because I just did it down there, is going to equal 40. So up here, our 5 is going to be 5 times, remember whatever I do to the bottom, I must do to the top, which is going to be 25. And then I need to do the same thing with 3/5. I need to make it equal 40 on the bottom. So what did I do to 5 to get to 40? I multiplied it by 8 like we did over here. We did 8 times 5. So I need to say 3 times 8 is going to equal what? Which is 24. So then I need to take these two fractions that I just redid, just like we did before, and these are the two that I'm comparing. All right, and make sure you're writing them in the correct order. Once again, that's super important. So I would say 25/40 hundredths, or 24 and 40 hundredths. Which one is bigger? I'm going to say once again, just like we said, 25 is going to be larger than 24 because that's 25 pieces. So it's going to be bigger. so here's our last one that we are going to be practicing. I would like you to pause this and try it both of the ways that we just did it before. So I want you to find the lowest common multiple and then find the equivalent fractions for both. And then I want you to also multiply the two bottom denominators by each other and find equivalent fractions that way to figure out how they are equal and what they're equal to. So when you are done, you're going to come back and check your work. All right, so you should have found the lowest common multiple of both of these. So we're going to do 6 and 10. So if I skip counted by 6, it's going to be 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. I could keep going, but I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to go 10, 20, 30. So our lowest common multiple is going to be 30. So I'm going to say 3, 6 is equal to what over 30? So I figured out, what did I multiply this by? 5. 6 times 5 equals 30. So whatever I did to the bottom, I must do to the top. So this is going to be 15. All right, so then we have to do our other one, which is 5/10 equals what over 30. So 10 times what equals 30? I'm going to say 3. So 5 times what? I'm going to multiply it by 3, because that's what I did to the bottom. So this is going to be 15. So then I'm going to write these underneath of these, just so I make sure I wrote them in the right place, because this one went here, and this one came over here to this one. Well, these are both 15/30ths, so these would actually be equal to each other. Now, if we multiplied our 2 on the bottom to each other, let's do that in a different color. I would take 6 times 10, which is going to equal 60. Therefore, I need to make both of my denominators equal 60. So I say 3, 6 equals what over 60? So I'd be multiplying these by 10. That's going to be 30/60ths. So over here, if I have 5/10, and that's going to equal what over 60? I multiply this by 6. So I multiply the top by 6, and I get 30/60ths. So these I'd replace, make sure I put them in the right spot. But just like these ones, I'm going to find that 30/60ths is equal to 30/60ths. So then I'd be putting the sign equal to. All right, I hope you understood this and that we will talk about it tomorrow. So for class tomorrow, I want you to be able to come in and explain the 2 different ways that you can compare these fractions. So you need to be able to tell me, how can you compare these 2 fractions in order, what do you have to do to them in order to compare them? Okay, so you have to know the 2 different ways. So with your partner, you guys are going to be talking about both methods, and I'm going to give you a sample problem, and you're going to have to show me both ways. So make sure you're able to give me the lowest common multiple and multiplying the 2 denominators. All right, can't wait to see you tomorrow. Have a great evening.